uncleared land on the other side of the farm, and shortly after, my father left the tire business to commit to full-time farming. Mom and Dad came from opposite poles in respect to their religious upbringings. Dad was raised in an evangelical church as a child in the hills, where there was a puritanical intensity inside his mother's home. My grandmother allowed no alcohol in the house. In addition, any accoutrements that could be converted to games of chance were also prohibited. That meant no dice and no cards. Needless to say, there were no all-night Monopoly games when we went to visit Grandma in the hills. Ironically, the men would pass a bottle or jar semi-openly outside my grandmother's home, near a streetlight by the gravel road in front of her place. It seemed to me Grandma Palmer simply pretended not to see the outdoor activity she prohibited within her Christian home. Our mother was from a long-standing Episcopalian family in Lexington, where alcohol, especially bourbon, tobacco, and the like were all social norms. In my youth, Episcopalians were often called Whiskeypalians, given their proclivity to provide the full spectrum of hospitality at their social events. Still, Mother should not be seen as taking her faith lightly. Mom was a true believer to the core, and Dad was an easy convert to Mom's church. I think he liked the quiet, contemplative nature of the liturgy, and he loved Anglican music. As such, ours was a religious family that attended events at church several times each week. My folks sang in the choir, volunteered to visit the sick on Sunday afternoons, and served on the church vestry, governing board. As children, we served as choristers, acolytes, and youth group participants. School was very important. Mother was an elementary school teacher and monitored our schoolwork. Dad never went to college, but addressed the importance of education at every meal, reminding all of us we were to study hard so we might receive a college education. Farmisms, often the language foundation for farm philosophy, were part of our work environment in the fields, but once under Mother's roof, we spoke English, proper English. Farm work was important as well, with a tobacco crop, cattle, chickens, and sometimes hogs requiring our attention. However, Dad did not mind temporary periods away from farm work if the competing business was educational or religious. Sports had their place, but it was a distant priority behind the church, the farm, and the schoolhouse. It was somewhat difficult to play sports as a farm kid, as most of the practices and games took place in town, 30 minutes away. Our parents supported us, but it was clearly a secondary priority. I believe sports were an easy activity for our father. Although he was raised in an isolated area in eastern Kentucky, the fact he was ambidextrous permitted him to learn various sports and excel quickly, sufficient for him to be a paid basketball and baseball player after the war. My sense from him was if sports did not come easily, we were to put them aside for primary considerations: farm, church, school. Farm fortunes were mercurial. We weren't poor, but neither were we well off. On good crop years with good weather, we had cash flow but little savings. When weather was poor, tobacco was not selling for a good price, or beef prices were down, we struggled. Mother was a teacher ranging from full-time work to a part-time substitute as she aged. She also served as the family bookkeeper. Dad had other business interests, landscaping and some real estate endeavors. He and Mother were quite active in the community beyond the church. Dad was an elected city councilman, a master mason, a leader, potentate within the local Shriners, and he was well known in the county. Where Mother was bookish and more introverted, Dad was extremely adept socially. He never met a stranger and was completely at ease meeting new people, speaking in public, sharing in debate, and taking a stand. As such, he insisted upon his children having the confidence to engage others, to speak publicly, to advance opinions, and debate merits. Debate of ideas was a constant in our home, especially around the dinner table. While Dad respected a well-articulated argument, he held no such admiration for public protest where a person's only debate tactics were confined to screaming and waving signs. To be sure, he believed in the First Amendment, but he did not countenance a loud rabble. People who could not articulate their beliefs calmly and coolly in a public forum were either uninformed or weak-minded in the eyes of my father. In the same light, Dad admonished us to keep our emotions in check. He advised